Okay, so we now move on with the next type of plane area, which is about the polar coordinate system. And I think if you don't have this one in your senior high, probably you'll be having a difficult time since most likely this topic involves converting from rectangular coordinate system going towards polar coordinate system. So to give you a short review, so probably um, for example, this one is the x and y plane, and let's say this is a point on the first quadrant. So again, this one is the x and y plane. So again, this point is being represented by x and y distances. So meaning you have x distance going to the point and then y distance going towards the point. So again, this one is in terms of your rectangular coordinate system. So in other words, so if you want to try out um, if you want to try out let's say your polar system. So for a while lang ni kuha na kong screen, yung itong screen. Okay. Okay, so again, if you want to convert into rectangular uh, to polar, so in polar system, this point is now called as r and theta. So r is the radial distance coming from x, and then theta is the angular displacement coming from the x-axis. So from 0 going towards that particular point, this one is your r, the radial distance towards the point. And then again, theta is the angular displacement going towards the specific point. So muna siya. Okay? So again, the red one is the rectangular system. The blue one is the polar system. So again, the radial distance is not totally a solid line, but this one is just a distance going towards the specific point in the first quadrant. Okay, so to relate such equations, um, you may use the equations in the rectangular system, such as the Pythagorean theorem or other trigonometric functions. So let's say, for example, we're going to relate first r and the x and y distances. So through Pythagorean theorem, you can just state that x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared. Or in other words, that would be r squared. Or let's say in other words, if you want to convert into polar equation, that would be r equals the square root of x squared plus y squared. So again, you can just memorize one equation. You can just use this and then manipulate it afterwards. So another method is you can also use systems in trigo functions such as sine and cosine. So to do that is um, we can use sine function first. So let's say sine theta. So sine theta is opposite over hypotenuse, so that would be y over r. So isolating y, that would be y equals r sine theta. Okay, then if you're going to have cosine, that would be cosine is equal to x over r. Then isolating your x variable, that would be x equals r sine theta. So notice that you have two equations that can be used to convert rectangular towards polar equation or vice versa, depending on what you need. So you can also isolate r if you want to look for y again or x variable. So to look for the angle, all you have to do is to use the tangent function. Tangent theta is equal to y over x. And then isolating theta, that would give us arc tangent y over x. Okay, so this is just a short background on polar equations. So converting polar to rectangular system. So in the next few slides, what will be important from that point onwards would be the graphing aspect of your polar equations. So what I have discussed here is just a review on probably on how to convert equations, because there are problems where you need to convert first before you can actually try to solve it using polar equations. Okay, so next is we graph our polar equations, and then next is now we solve the plane areas involving polar equations. So to start off, probably the best thing that you can do is to compare the different types of graph. So on the left side is your rectangular system, and then the other one is polar. So notice that it's circular because you are using now the angle of theta due to the angular displacement of the point. Okay, so we're going to solve or to graph six different equations. Um, let's just try four lang siguro. So I'll just give you the idea on how to actually graph them, and then probably I'll just um, solve four, and then we'll go to the area. So again, please take out your calculators because we cannot graph these equations if um, we don't have any calculators. Okay, I don't know the values sa mga equations. Ano eh. Okay, so notice that all are in um, r and theta in the equation. So those are polar equations. Okay, so let's go to number one first. So let me write the equation first. R equals, sorry, 2 times 1 plus 2 sine theta. Okay, so number one, that's R equals 2 times 1 plus sine theta. Okay, so we're going to do this as easy as possible. So all you have to do is probably polar equations is a bit easier compared with the rectangular system in terms of graphing. So first thing that you need to do is to create a table. So theta and then r. So next is you start off with zero angle, and we're going to be utilizing the radian form of the angle. So take note that you have different radian angles here: pi over 6, pi over 3, pi over 2, so on and so forth. So again, that would be going from 0 to 360. So pi over 6. So again, you have to utilize the radian mode. So pi over 3, pi over 2, 2 pi over 3, 5 pi over 6, pi, and then let's try to extend this one. 7 pi over 6, 4 pi over 3, and then 3 pi over 2, and then lastly would be 2 pi. Okay, so since you'll be solving how many angles? Mga probably 1, 2, 3, 4. So probably 10 or 12 angles, di ba? So my tip here is you can just use your calculator and try to take advantage of the special function in your calculator. So go to mode 7. So I think mode 7 is table. Mode 7. And I think the title there is table. Once you click that particular function, what will appear in your screen is before you start using mode 7 nga table, make sure that it's in radian mode. So for example, this one is the screen of your calculator. So make sure that it's letter R. It should be in radian mode. So I think it's um, I forgot the I don't think it's mode or the other button, but try using shift mode siguro and then um, answer it in radians. Okay. So next is after you press mode 7 table, what will appear in your screen is f of x equals something. So you have to input first the equation. Okay, so notice that the variable of interest is x, diba? So our variable is theta. But again, since the calculator is by default, the variable is always x, so we need to change theta into its corresponding desired variable in the calculator. So instead of theta, this would become 2 times 1 plus sine, then alpha x, and then that would be your equation. And then when you press equal sign, so equal sign, what will appear, I think what will appear first would be it is asking for a starting value, start. So plug in 0 because it's a 0 angle. And then end, meaning the end part of the angle. So you write 2 pi. Then lastly, it would be asking for a step. The step here is it means that it's the interval from start to end interval. Okay, so the interval would be 30 degrees, which is pi over 6. So input pi over 6. Then after inputting pi over 6, I think you need to press equal sign again. And then what appears next would be the different values in tabular form. Okay, so kindly give me the answer if you are able to. So again, take note that it should be in radian mode. Okay, so kindly answer it. Okay, no answer.
Ang zero sir kay 2.
I-complete na lang.
Oh, 2, dayon 3, dayon 3.732, dayon 4, and 3.732, dayon 321.
3, 2, 1.
Inabsun ako sir ubos sir. And then 3, dayon 2, dayon 1.
And then next would be
0.2679. Dayon 0, and 0.2679.
then 1.
Dayon 1 and 2.
Okay. So thank you for that one. Okay, so did you use your calculator in solving this one?
Yes sir.
So mas dali siya sa calculator, di ba? Rather than
Yes sir.
plugging it in manually each angle into your equation. So it would take time siguro if you keep on plugging in 0, then equal sign, then next you plug in again this equation, then plug in pi over 6, then equation na sa next angles, and so on and so forth. So medyo madugay mo, di ba? But for a table method, that would be the easiest um, shortcut that I can give you in getting the angles, in getting the values from 0 to 360. So I think you can. It's also applicable to rectangular coordinates. Let's say you're going to graph a line, but I think the starting point is it will depend on you. So it would be probably if you want it from 0 to 5, so pwede sa then the step would be 1. So pwede na po siya using other equations as long as you can set the right um, steps and starting point, end points, and the steps or the interval. Okay, so let's now try graphing the equation. So the first one would be 0 and 2. So again, in the 0 angle line, the radial distance is 2. So 1, 2. So this would be the first point. Next would be pi over 6. That would be 3. So in this line, pi over 6, the radial distance is 3. So this one is 3. Okay, so take note this one is 3. Then 3.7 in pi over 3. So let's say this one is the point here. Then let's say 4 in pi over 2. So magsunod-sunod yun na siya. Then 3, then 2. So 0.26. Okay, so that would be the graph, the points from 0 to 360. So next is starting from 0, you graph it counterclockwise. So this may not be accurate since I am just doing it manually. So mura siya og shell ana. So muna siya. That's how you graph your polar equation. So I think it's pretty simple since you have the shortcut in your calculator. So let's take advantage of the calculator sa inyong mga problem solving. And also I want to teach you calculator shortcuts because these are important in the board exam also. So the faster that you can solve your equations, the better um, advantage that you're going to have since you have more time to solve the other problems as well. Okay, so this is the graph, and then try to pause it later for, in the video that I'm going to. So this would be the. So I'm just going to erase now siguro so that I can show you the graph on using Desmos. So basta you get the idea on how to solve the equations. Okay, and then this would be the corresponding graph. So usually this one is a perfect form because probably Desmos is using an interval of kanang gagmay kay nga intervals, di ba? Ato kay dagko atong interval, so it's not that really accurate compared with the one coming from Desmos graph. Okay, so any questions for number one? So I think that's pretty simple using the shortcut in the calculator.
And so far, sir.
Okay, so I want to discuss an equation wherein it gives a negative value para at least dito madugay. Okay? Sorry. Okay, so equation for number two would be the minus cosine side. So I'm going to write it on the left lang siguro so that we can have the space later. So again, try solving r equals 2 times 1 minus cosine theta. Okay, so again, I'm going to give you ample time to solve it using the tabular method in the calculator, and then give me the answers afterwards.
Sir, wala na present ang phone, sir.
Wala mang present ang
Ah,
PowerPoint. Sige, so try solving this one using your calculator, and then give me the value afterwards. So I'm writing the angle, so try answering it using the calculator. So to serve also as a practice so that you can have a muscle memory on using the table method.
five over 6 gapon ang step ninyo, sir.
30 degrees gapon. So I think the step should always be 30 degrees para mas dali siya
Okay, sir.
makarotate. Okay, so if you have the answer, just inform me.
Kuan sir, nag-start sa 0.
Zero.
0 dayon 0.2679 and then 1, 2, 3, 3.732, then 4, and then 3.732, then 3, 2, 1, 0.2679, then 0.
Okay, sige, thank you. Okay, so next is to graph it again. So straightforward yung siyang kuan dyan. So 0, and then next is 30-degree angle, 0.267. So let's say this one is then 1, then 2, and then 3 na 3. Then let's say 3.7, 4, let's say 3.7, 3, 2, 1, then 0.267 last. So again, all you have to do is to connect the dots. Okay, so more siya kidney, di ba? So I think the term here in polar equation is cardioid. Basta daghan na silang mga types of equations in the polar na system like limakon. So there are different terms in polar equations na graph. Okay, so for number 3, so try to graph this one. So we're going to have r equals to negative 2 sine theta. So again, try graphing it, and then I'm going to write the table first. So 0, and then okay, so if you have the answer, you can start telling me.
Sir, ang iyang answer kay 0, sir.
2 pi, it's 2 pi. Same naman na siya, 2 pi or 0.
Oh,
Sige, you have the answer na?
Wala pa, sir.
0 ang R, sir.
Ang first one,
0, then negative 1,
and then
negative 1.732, negative 2, negative 1.732,
negative 1,
negative 1, 0, 1, 1.732, 2, 1.732,
yeah.
1, then 0.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that one. Okay, so notice that we have negative values now for our R. So I think this is important because I think the other thing that we need to be reminded of is how to graph negative values of R. Okay, so um, for example, so so the first thing that you need to do is again, since we are going to plot now, so let me change first color. So 0. So for negative 1, so the I think what you need to do here is instead of so di ba ang atong 1 is this one in the six I mean in the 30 degrees nga direction. So probably this is our 1, di ba? Ano siya nga point here kani akong x. But since it's negative, so meaning we have to flip it on the other side of its axis. So meaning if we try to extend this one, di ba? So the point here of negative 1 would be found on the opposite side of pi over 6, which is in quadrant 3. So this is your 1 here. Okay? So again, since it's negative, you have to flip it, or let's say put it on its opposite quadrant. So since it's pi over 6, so you have to make it opposite, which is now in 7 pi over 6. So again, it's still pi over 6, but the value is negative 1. Okay? So what if, well, for example, if it's 1.732, so again, going towards 1.732. So let's say this one is the point here. So since it's negative, so again, you have to flip it on the other side. Okay, so that's the point now. So negative 2, so again, this might be the point for pi over 2, but it is now here. Okay, so same goes for the other point. So let's say this one is at this point here. So going towards its opposite side, it's here there. Okay, and then negative 1x. So it's here. So instead of being here, it's now on this location. Okay, so next is the other points. So 0 going, so again, it goes back to 0 at pi, and then now is we have a positive value for your equation. So you now have 1 in 7 pi over 6. So still 1, di ba? And then 1.732 So still the same, 2, 1.732, and then 0. Okay, so most likely the equation in this, I'm sorry, so marag na sobraan ako drawing. Basa mo na siya ang drawing. Nagalisod ako sa akong kuan. Okay, so that's the equation for your number 3. So most likely, so kani siya ako siyang gi-zoom ha. Okay, gamay mo gud siya good. So most likely that it's a circle. Okay, so since you have now the idea on how to graph negative values, so probably I'll leave numbers 4, 5, and 6 to you. So this is number 4, and then number 3 graph, number 5 graph, and then number 6 graph. So again, going back to number 3. So again, if you have a negative value of your r, all you have to do is to flip it on the other side of the particular line. Okay, so for example, this one, diba? So this one is being flipped on this direction. Okay, so just try to review this one later. Basta the concept of graphing negative values of r in polar equation is you just have to flip it on the other side. Okay, so question so far before we go to the real deal, which is the equations.
Wala pa, sir.
Okay, so let's now go to the equations. So this is the equation for area under polar coordinate system. So we have two equations. So the first one would be would involve only a single curve, meaning you are only presented with one particular equation in polar system, and usually the area falls under one equation only. So that's why it's called single curve. However, if your area is under two curves, or let's say two polar equations, that's double curve na. And then the formula will be remodified into um, a one wherein it fits the area bounded by two curves. Pero it's similar to the single curve, but ang nalayo lang is ang r lang a value. Okay, so the formula for a single curve is a is equal to the integral of 1/2 r squared theta d theta. So most likely this one is similar to the area of the cone. So if you can try to remember the area of the cone, let's say sa inyong um, solid geometry. So I think the formula here is 1/2 r squared theta mo siguro to, di ba? Sa inyong solid geometry. So the concept is still the same here in your polar coordinate system. So just take note that since our theta is now varying with respect to the problem presented, so that's why it's d theta. And then r squared would be the corresponding equation touching that particular bounded region. Or for you to be able to understand this one in a better aspect, So try creating a representative cone. So let's say this one is your representative cone. Okay. So mura siyang pina-vertical and horizontal strip pa. So create mo ginani. So whatever is touching the tipmost part of the cone, that would be your R value. Okay. That would be the equation that you need to input in the formula. So alpha and beta are just the angular displacement from the first bounded area going towards the last portion of the bounded area. So it's always counterclockwise in direction. Okay. And always take note that since it's counterclockwise, so angle alpha is always lesser than angle beta. Diba? Kay impossible mo sad na 60 degrees going to 30 degrees, diba? Then you are rotating counterclockwise. So it should be that alpha is always lesser. So it may be 30 degrees going towards 60 degrees. So ila na siya nga aspect. So again, you always measure it counterclockwise. So since it's counterclockwise, so alpha is always lesser than beta. Okay, so to appreciate the formula, let's try to solve this problem. So determine the area of the inner loop of r equals 2 plus 4 cosine theta. So since you know how to graph, I'll leave the graphing to you. So this is the graph. So the next thing that we need to do now is, I think, important pa rin ang graph, but sige lang. Let's just try to kuhan lang. So try graphing it on your own first. So let's try to. Okay, I think it's important to determine the table because you need to determine also the alpha and beta aspect. Okay, so try solving this one in your table mode in the calculator. So I'll just write it here lang. Pi over 6, pi over 3. So while I'm writing here, so just try to answer it again in your calculator. Okay, so anyone, I can't look.
Next stars have 6, sir.
So 6 and then
5.641. 5.4641. Then 4, 2, 0, negative 1.464, negative 2, negative 1.464, then 0, 2, 4, 5.4641, then 6.
and then 6. Okay. So I think this one is important since the problem is asking for the inner loop of the equation. So inner loop. So if we are going to try to shade the inner loop, so let me use another color. So this one is the inner loop, diba? Kaning gamay. Okay, so why is the table method important in determining the inner loop of the equation? So of course, if you try to track down the points, so 6, 5.4, and then next is 4, and then 2, and then 0. And then negative 1.46, diba? Which is this one. Then negative 2, negative 1.46. So meaning it starts with assumption ng start. So then balik sa 0, di ba? Then before everything else is being determined. So meaning this region here is your starting from 2 pi going towards 4 pi over 3. That is the inner loop. Diba? So muna siyang important sa inyong tabular method because you can track down where this portion is in your graph. And also, I think it's also important because you're able to determine alpha and beta better in this aspect. Okay, so again, that's the importance of having the table method and having the different values because again, you are able to you're able to easily determine the different values sa inyong angles alpha and the beta. So formula wise, so alpha area is equal to the integral of 1/2 r squared d theta from alpha going to beta. So 1/2. So you can just plug in the constant inside the integral symbol because you are going to use your calculator, so it doesn't matter really. So again, if you take up a representative strip, so the tip is touching the red graph, and of course, since you're only under one curve, so there's no other equation to plug in but the given equation in the problem. So 2 plus 4 cosine theta squared d theta. So again, try to keep your calculator in radian mode if you're going to answer this problem. So again, the starting point of the loop is this one at 0. And it ends with 0 again. So meaning our alpha is 2 pi over 3, then going towards 4 pi over 3. So 2 pi over 3 going towards 4 pi over 3. And then the rest is you just use your calculator. So simple lang na siya. Okay, so try plugging this one in your calculator and give me the answer. Okay, so what's the answer? So again, radian mode because the limits is in radians also. Your angles is in radians. Sige, anyone? You have the answer? Hello?
Loading pa kung answer 4.34.
4.34.
I-round up ni sir.
Pwede ra 2 decimal siguro.
4.35.
Nana siya 1/2? Wala pa. Okay, so this would be the answer. So if ato'y 1/2, probably 4.35, murag kuwang tog 1/2 imo ang answer. If imo to'y divide og 2, mo na siyang answer. So don't forget the 1/2 ha kay. So kato sakto siya 4.35. So if i-divide by 2 nimo, mo na siyang answer. Okay, so this is the answer or the solution. So if you don't want to use the tabular method in determining alpha and beta, so you have to do this system here. You're going to manipulate, um, you're going to set r equals to 0 and then manipulate the values to get the angle theta, which is, for me, it's a bit confusing because in the first place, why do you let r equals to 0, di ba? So I think there's no basis why you are going to set r equals to 0. So again, for me, the better option would be the tabular method because I can see all the values starting from 0 going towards 360 degrees. So again, you may just opt this portion here. So kung siya, wala siya ilabot.
Okay lang sir, kung diretso na lang.
Okay, calculator naman ta. So, pwede na siya ilabot. Because again, since we are now using the calculator on the second half in the final exam, so I think the important part from this point onwards would be setting up your equations. So if you're able to correctly set up your equation and then, so meaning the rest would be easy, yeah? Calculator, then answer na yun. So ana ra siya. Okay? So murag na siya inyong button. So set up the equation and then use the calculator. So again, the difficult part would be setting up alpha and beta. Okay, so let's now go to two curves. So notice that this one is a bit different now, but the formula is still the same, but since you now have two curves or two equations, this would pertain to r outer squared minus r inner squared. So again, if you try to create a representative strip in the diagram shown, so notice that this one is the bounded region. So most likely if you want to look for this one, so mura siya katong pina rings ninyo, di ba? So to determine this area, that would be the outer area of the outer circle minus area of the inner circle, di ba? Which gives you 1/2, which give you pi times r outer squared minus r inner squared. So this concept is the same here. Diba? So since you are only looking for the green part, so entire area of the red one minus the blue one, so outer minus inner is the green area. So same concept as that one. So again, if you try to write the equation, So probably it's the same as the single curve, but again, we don't have any inner aspect. Okay, so still the same 1/2, but this time is you have r outer squared minus r inner squared d theta. So what's missing in the single curve equation is just r inner squared. So it's just one r in a single curve. Okay, so let's try to again write this, solve this equation. So let's try creating two tables. So, ato lang pakita daan ng graph para mas madali ta. So two tables pertaining this one and r equals to 2. So kaning r is equal to 2, regardless of which angle it is, it's still 2, di ba? Kaya you don't have any theta in the equation. So let's just have this one lang. Kaning 3 plus 2 sine theta. So again, ang r equals to 2 is you don't have to create a table anymore because it's 2 all throughout the angles. Diba? Kaya you don't have any angle theta here. Compared here is that we have a theta here. So you can still manipulate the value of theta in this equation. There's no theta. So it's 2 all around. 0 pi over 6. So again, try to solve this one in your calculator. So probably this is 3, 4. So kanang next, di ko sure. Ay, verify lang daw ang answer if unsa. So probably this one is 3, then 4, and the next would be kani siya, unsa ni siya nga value diri.
4.732 na sir.
Pila?
4.732.
4.732. Then 4.
Same gihapon.
Then
Yung
kaning
dura kayo.
4 pi over 3 pila man eh?
1.2679.
1.2679. And the other
Same
one
na
is
gihapon.
still gap. Okay. Okay, so why is it important to have this table again? So let me try to write the points first. So for 2, it's 2, 2, 2. Okay, so why is it important to make a table again? So notice that this one is 2, diba? On the second equation, the blue part. This one is the red graph. So red, and then this one is blue. So since this one is r equals to 2, so meaning the point of intersection is this portion here, and then this portion here, because it gives a value of 2. So this one are your points of intersection. So diba, it can easily be detected in the equation alone. I mean that in the table alone. So since it's asking for the area that lies inside r equals 3, so inside this portion, inside the red graph, but outside the blue graph. So meaning the entire portion or the entire region is this one. Okay, so again, you have to read the problem carefully. So inside the red but outside the blue one. So again, since we now have points of intersection, so if we try to create a representative strip here, so again, this one is the area, representative area or differential area. So again, we measure counterclockwise. So starting from 11 pi over 6, going towards 7 pi over 6. So starting at this point, ending at this point here. So start and then end. So again, probably you're going to ask me, should we start with 11 pi over 6? So again, take note that alpha should always be lesser than beta. So instead of 11 pi over 6, we're going to get its negative counterpart, which is negative pi over 6. So I think you know this one because you have your trigonometry in your high school. So if we try to rotate counterclockwise, or rather clockwise direction, we start off with a negative value, diba? If we are rotating clockwise. So the first 30 degrees counterclockwise is negative 30, diba? So instead of using 11 pi over 6, we're going to use negative pi over 6 because we are rotating counterclockwise. And again, it should be that alpha is always lesser than beta. And since our starting point is this one, and our endpoint is this one, so 11 pi is larger than 7 pi over 6. So we have to make this one smaller. Okay, and then the rest is just use the formula. Area is equal to 1 half r outer squared minus r inner squared d theta from alpha to beta. So that would be 1 half and then times. So the outer part is the red one. That would be 3 plus 2 sine theta squared. And then minus the inner portion, the blue one, 2 squared. And then d theta. So again, alpha is from negative pi over 6 going towards 7 pi over 6. So again, it starts from here, di ba? Okay, this one is the first boundary. So starting from here, going towards the other end, counterclockwise. And then now you have the area. So probably if you want to simplify further the equation, so you can do that because it also helps the calculator with the solving aspect. So if you try to, let's say, simplify the equations first before plugging it in your calculator, so mas dali magawa sang answer. But of course, mas mas ganam tang assure, di ba? Balag dugay. So just try to write everything lang siguro in general form and then you can just wait for the calculator to give you the answer. Okay, so for this one, the answer would be so 24.19. So I'm just going to write it because we're running out of time. So this is the solution. And this would be the answer. So again, you can just opt this one out. Okay, since you are using the calculator. So again, notice that the lower limit is 7 pi over 6. Okay, so example number 3. So outside R equals outside the red graph, but inside the blue graph. So outside, so it's here. Outside the red graph, but inside the blue graph. So again, since we know that our points of intersection are these points, so this is the area of interest. So again, taking a representative strip, the outer portion now is the blue graph, the inner portion is now the red graph. And again, we rotate counterclockwise, diba? So this should be our start, this should be our end. So again, formula. So again, just have to write the equation. So 7 pi over 6, then 11 pi over 6, then 1 half. So outer now is blue, inner is red. Okay, then it gives you the area. Okay, then this would be the answer. And then lastly would be this problem here. So I'm just going to show this one. Wait. Okay, so if you can't solve the example number 4, so you cannot solve this one because again, if you try to create a representative strip coming from the origin, so you don't have any um, other kuan, di ba? So it only serves as a single curve. And again, I think it's the same rules sa inyong rectangular system area. So the strip must be consistent all throughout the region of the area. Di ba ito atong vertical strip? So even though that we place it on the farmost left, the upper and the lower part is touching the same equation. Same goes if we place it on the super right side of the bounded region, the top and the bottom portion is touching the same equation. So same goes for the horizontal strip. So it's the same scenario for the polar equation. So it must be that when I try to create the representative strip anywhere in the bounded region, it must be that the equations that it touches are the same. So sa upper quadrant it's red, diba? But when I go to the blue quadrant, it's now blue, diba? So meaning we have to approach a problem in a different manner. So that's why we have two different sets of solution. So you just try to um, understand this one on your own. So don't worry, I'm going to post the PowerPoints from now on. Okay, it's area naman good compared with the integral calculus nga aspect atong techniques. So we are just dealing with solutions, di ba? So Limakon is the blue graph, then circle is the red one. Okay, so any questions before we dismiss?
Wala pa, sir.
Kasi mo ito, format ng Cartesian tangent mo na yung angles.
I think ma-search na ninyo sa Desmos.
Okay, sir.
Marag niyo na siyang i-convert in a way nga may nata siya. So kana siya isa
Sir,
kana ako na siyang i-convert kay para di ko maglisod og graph sa lakong lecture. Sige, question Edgardo.
regarding sa mga calculators nga dili pwede makatabulate siya ba? Unsa ay pwede raman magmano-mano sir.
Oh, pwede rin magmano-mano pero
Sa
malay
Desmos pud kay kanang available pud na siya sa Desmos, no? Ang kanang auto-tabulate.
murag wala, dili siya available sa Desmos. I think sa Desmos is you just have to write the equation and then it provides you with the graph directly. But for the the values for the katong increments, murag wala siya sa Desmos.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And again, walay Desmos sa exam ah. Ang Desmos is just a helping tool that will aid you with verifying your graphs. Ana lang siguro, especially with the points of intersection. Okay, so questions before we leave, before you enjoy our long weekend.
Wala na, sir.
Okay, so if that's the case, so thank you very much for being with me today, even though we are just 26. And then see you all on, probably we'll just meet on Wednesday next week so that you can have kanang ample time to rest. Okay, so by next week is we're going to go with centroids of areas. Okay, so I think that's it. So if you don't have any further concerns, so you can now be dismissed and then see you all next Wednesday. So have a great weekend, everyone.
Goodbye
Bye.
and
Thank
thank
you,
you,
sir.
sir.
Goodbye and
Bye.
thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Sige, goodbye.